everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews and another episode of Theater Tuesdays. This is our 10th episode of Theater Tuesdays. I love this series and I'm so excited about it. And today we have with us Cailtin Olsen, who's a local actor here in Utah. We became friends and I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming to talk with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Well, since you're new to the podcast, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and how you got started in the world of musical theater.
So like you said, I'm Cailtin. I have not lived in Utah my whole life. So I grew up as an Air Force kid. Theater, oh goodness. I'm trying to think exactly when. I was thinking about this the other day and I was like, I don't know. It's all just kind of a blur. But when my dad was stationed at Hill Air Force Base, my mom worked at a local community theater doing costuming, and she was a seamstress and did some awesome stuff. And we got to kind of tag along. So we were in shows and things. And then I was also in Sunshine Generation with like the bright orange pinafore and the whole deal. It was great.
That's at school? Sunshine Generation. I've never heard of that.
Generation was I don't know when they stopped it, but it was back in the 90s. And it was just like this performing group, and there were like different chapters, I guess, of it. I thought it was just some like odd thing because I'm in the Air Force, and so we moved away, and then I moved back for college, and people were like, "Oh yeah, I was in Sunshine Generation." So I don't know if it was like a Utah thing. I just remember wearing like, it was bright orange and yellow. We looked like sunflowers. Like it was so 90s and so adorable and just great. So I was singing in that, and I was little. We lived here when I was 4 years old to 8 years old, and then we moved. So, well, yeah. So I had those few years of getting my, addiction started with theater and performing and being the center of attention. It was awesome. And then as I moved around, there weren't a ton of opportunities in most of the places we lived. So it mostly was in choir, because at school that was pretty much like, here's choir, but not every school has theater. So it wasn't until we lived in Oklahoma when I was in junior high that I started back into theater as well as choir. And I did, oh goodness, there's a play called Virgil's Wedding, and I was like the grandma in it.
Wow, that sounds intense for middle school.
It was great. It was ridiculous. And then it's like one of those things where there's just like misunderstandings, and like instead of Mr. Right, like this one girl's looking for Mr. Right, and there's a man whose name is Mr. Wright, Mr. Right. So it's like that kind of
clever.
It's pretty cute. And then Midsummer Night's Dream. So that was kind of my first foray into Shakespeare. I got to play Helena as a ninth grader. But it was really fun, and I just got a taste for it.
Yeah.
And then we moved again, and I was in high school in Kentucky, and they did like a big like one musical year, and then they did a couple of like straight plays, and then like some of the students could direct like a Christmas show. So I was in The Best Christmas Pageant Ever like 18 times. I just feel like I know that play frontwards and backwards, and it was fun. But it was just an opportunity to be on stage and to step into something else. So I
don't know why Hallmark hasn't done a new version of The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. I feel like it would be a huge hit.
I do too.
Yeah, there's like an old version of it from the 90s.
Yeah,
that I don't know if it was a Hallmark movie, but Hallmark like, and I just think everybody would love it. It would be a huge hit.
I agree. I think it would be one of those things where it's just like so nostalgic.
Yeah,
and you just turn it on every Christmas with your Hallmark movies. Why not?
Yeah. So what other shows were you in high school?
Oh goodness. In high school, I was in Peter Pan.
Oh, okay.
My memory. Not even that old.
I was in theater in high school as well. I mean, I'm like, and this is not false, I'm the worst dancer. Like I can't I'm like kind of dyslexic.
Oh
It's
no.
almost impossible for me to like learn the patterns and keep it in my head, and
Sure.
very difficult. So I was just in, like whatever choir scene, whatever group scene that they could hide me in the back so that I can, so they could hide my dancing. Uh, it was what I was in. We did the Wiz.
Okay.
It was this was in Maryland, where I went to high school. Is a very white version of the Wiz. Probably wouldn't do it now, but we had fun.
Yeah.
And it is a good show for high school to do, I think, because it has a ton of solos and it has a ton of group scenes. Because in my opinion, and we've talked about this before, in my opinion, anybody who wants to participate should be able to participate in high school theater. Like I think it's such a mistake. Like my sister, they did Into the Woods and in her high school, and I think that was a mistake because there's just not very many group scenes in
Yeah.
Into the Woods. It
That's
has
such
a
an
pretty
ensemble cast.
small
Yeah.
cast.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can know if they like something unless they get a chance to try it.
It's true. Which is where
And
I think community theater, especially here in Utah, thrives because it's such an opportunity for that. But I agree with you. In high school, so this is a completely different thing to me. Like I came out to Utah and, all the people I know now who grew up here and were in theater in high school, and they're like, oh yeah, well, there was this company and this. And I was like, wait, there are multiple companies. Like we were just like begging people to like, you want to be in this show? You've never sung a tune in your life before.
Right.
Come sing. It's great. Like
especially boys.
Yeah.
Like, please be
in fact, in our high school, I don't know if this is real. We just talked about it as like the kids. We were like, the drama teacher and the football coach had to have this pact. Like they had to, because it was like, if the guys on the football team did the show, they had some sort of like extra credit or like they got to play a little bit more. I don't know.
I was just thinking about that because I just saw High School Musical this last week, and I was thinking Miss Darvis would jump at the chance for Troy. It doesn't matter if he's late to the audition. Are you kidding me?
She'd be like, oh, yay. Oh, it is and just have it so easy. No.
But the problem here in Utah, though, is yes, there are so many local theaters, but it's so competitive. There's so much talent out here that it's hard to just try it out, and just it's hard to have those roles in the back where you can just participate and have fun.
It is. And it's honestly one of the reasons why I love it when theaters double cast, even including the ensemble. I know that on the production side of things and the rehearsal side of things, that's a lot of work because now you have to make sure that both of these people, and then you have to get with your double and that kind of thing. But it really does give the opportunity for the people who are a little bit more seasoned to be in the show, but then the people who haven't ever done it a day in their life or getting back into it, they can also have the chance. And then you can kind of like blend the two together. And when you double the opportunities by double casting, you get that. And I understand that it's not just as simple as like, let's just double cast everything. There's more to it than that, but I really do like it when there's two casts. I think Centerpoint does that.
Hope Box does double cast.
On Pitch Performing Arts does that. I'm not sure, but I mean, again, there's also the issue of, do we have enough people auditioning?
Right. And so then we did the plays that they picked when I was in high school were very, very strange. We did a compilation of a bunch of different skits about the holidays, about Christmas. Which is right up my alley, but it was kind of random, including a live nativity with animals, which very ambitious, but
working with animals is not easy.
No. And I was the old woman who came into the church to tell the pastor that the organ was broken in the Silent Night origin story skit.
Nice.
Air Pastor, because that song was written for the guitar because the organ was broken.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So now I always will remember that because it was and then we did a whole music, not musical. We did a whole play of different scenes from Shakespeare. I don't know why we didn't just do a Shakespeare play. It was weird, but I had just small roles in that, and then we did Up the Down Staircase, which is like a hidden gem, a play nobody's heard of.
Yeah.
it's it's kind of like Dangerous Minds, or like, you know, these Your Sister Would Love, these like inspirational teacher stories. It's this, and there is a pretty good movie about it with Sandy Duncan. She goes into this tough neighborhood, failing school, and she teaches the students. And so I was in that. And then we did, as far as musicals, we did The Wiz, and then we did Bye Bye Birdie, which I think Bye Bye Birdie is the perfect show for high school.
Absolutely.
It has tons of group scenes. It has tons of solos. It's, I mean, the mother is so cringe and I hate her so much.
Yeah.
But I wish they would do a revival just to like fix
Bring
that
it
character. It's like her whole joke is, I'm racist.
Ugh. Yeah.
It's the worst.
Oh man.
They just did it at Beverly's Terrace Plaza and I did the review, and I was just like, what did I say about this horrible mother?
I remember reading it, and you were like, you said that. You said she's so cringy, like that she just can't.
Like, I was like, the woman did a great job. She was phenomenal, but
I mean, you got to work with the material, and sometimes the material is just it needs to be updated. In fact, there's a lot of shows right now that have been pulled. Like, you can't get the rights for them. There's a lot of shows that have been pulled so that they are going to be fixed.
The other one that needs a revival desperately is Thoroughly Modern Millie. That show is so cringe.
So that one
I hadn't realized until I went and saw it. It was one of the first ones of like of sort of this journey I've been on. And it was actually a youth production in American Fork, and they were phenomenal.
I'm sure.
Absolutely so good. But it was really cringy, and the whole human trafficking plot, like they had white actors playing the Chinese characters, which is not good. But on the other hand, the roles are so cringy that there was a side of me that was like, it almost would have been worse in a way for like people to be portraying their cultures in such a bad way. I just you can't do it. It's just too it's too bad.
So I know that one I think is being rewritten.
It needs it desperately.
And Drowsy Chaperone as well.
Oh, really?
There's some moments in that one that are entirely very, very extremely racist.
But like, it's at least in that though, it's like self-aware. That's part of the joke.
Yeah. And I
mean, the whole thing is like with the King and I joke, like it's making fun of that.
Right. And I'm not sure if that's entire. I'm not sure what parts. I'm not on the rewriting committee, but I just know that like you can't get rights to it right now because it's been pulled.
Really? That's interesting.
There's a lot of shows right now that are not available because you have the shows that have been pulled. You have the shows that are on tour. You have the shows that are on Broadway, so you're not allowed to do any of those, unless there are some stipulations outside of like I'm not entirely sure because there's tiers, right? There's the
well, and then there's like the junior productions that sometimes get out there earlier,
right? Like Anastasia Junior was out before Anastasia was. There's another one that I love Anastasia so much. I love the music in that show. But the show itself is too long. It's almost 3 hours long.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for family movie night, or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Is just, I think that if you were to ask me, which no one is, that the
They
Countess,
should. We're available.
right? Let us know. I'll happily, give you some advice. The Countess and the Common Man. I don't know if you're familiar with Anastasia, but
Well, I've seen it once and I was disappointed by it.
Yeah,
'Cause
like
I love the original film. I know it has its flaws, and I understand that you have to change Rasputin. I get that. You're not gonna have him like talking to a bat, but they swung too far. They overcorrected.
Yeah,
They made it really boring. Like there was no fun.
It was more historical, like let's try to be historically accurate, but not, because it's still fiction. And then so I think if they put Perry Holds the Key, like that one is like such a fun, it breaks up the monotony. And now they have Countess and the Common Man, and oh, I can't remember what it's called, but they're basically at this, it's fun, it's still upbeat, it's still kind of got that, but there's just too much that like makes it drag.
I agree. I thought it was boring.
It was, and I was really, really sad because some of those songs that they've added are beautiful, and they do give Anastasia more depth than just this girl who can't remember who she is. But I love it, but it's a hard one to produce, because it is. I saw it when it came to the Eccles Theater, and 3 hours
too long. The other one that's too long, Matilda. It's too long.
Yeah,
Matilda is too long, and they should get rid of that entire escapologist plot. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't it takes a lot of time.
And if
you're
not aware enough of what's happening, you kind of miss why that's there.
I get it because it's Miss Honey and everything, right, but you don't really need it for the plot. You could just, it's just rant. It doesn't need it, and it just takes a lot of time. And it does. So I mean, when I saw a version of Matilda at Payson Community Theater, I reviewed it for UTBA. It was phenomenal.
Oh, that's good.
I don't even love that show. It has some bops. It's got some, but it was Broadway level quality. It really was. It was absolutely incredible. The sets, the size of the cast, all of the performances were outstanding. And the biggest difference, and I think you'll agree, the biggest difference between equity level performances and regional is usually the sound quality. And if a regional production can nail that, and it's very expensive, you're absolutely right. If they can nail that, that is the biggest difference. I mean, at least here in Utah, the performance, the acting, the singing is usually on par with what I see in equity productions, if not better. But if they can get that, that is the biggest difference, I think.
Which is why it's so important to go and support these community theaters. Yeah. Whether it's an arts council or just, any community theater in your area, because ticket sales don't make up most of the income. Yeah. But ticket sales help. Yeah. Significantly. Yeah. Donating, whether it's your time or energy or whatever, it's such a big deal. Like, I mean, like when you get Patreons and you get supporters, that is really where you're able to then improve the quality of what you have. And whether it's a teeny tiny little stage or a big massive stage, like sound quality is important. And it's so expensive. Yeah. So it is the biggest determining factor, I think, and it makes sense, because how can you enjoy the show as much if you can't hear them? Can't hear them. Yep.
It makes sense. Yeah. But so you came out here for school. You said you went to high school in Kentucky.
Yeah, Yep. I went to high school in Kentucky, graduated there, and then I came out and I went to BYU, and
Did you do performance at BYU?
I didn't.
No, no.
I was
So
I
competitive.
it oh tell me about it. But I thought, you know what, maybe I will. Maybe I'll throw my hat in the ring. I ended up um I took a semester where I was stage management, and I'm too vain. It is so much like stage managers do not get enough recognition.
Yeah.
They work their butts off,
Yeah.
and they're behind the scenes the whole time. They don't get a moment shining
It's
on
true.
stage when everyone clapping for them. Like they just don't. And I realized very quickly that I needed the applause. How horrible is that? I was like, I don't feel as fulfilled. Like, yes, I'm in the
Yeah.
theater world and I love doing it, but the stage was where I wanted to be. So then I switched and I was taking have a visitor. I had taking the prerequisites for the acting track,
Mhm.
not the musical theater, just the acting track. And had a professor tell me that he would be my faculty member
Like mentor.
sponsor. Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
supposedly you needed, or it was good to have, or you were going to have it if you went into the BFA program. Um, and I was too chicken. I was like, I'm not good enough for this. Like, that's very kind of you, but like, I don't think I could do this. Plus, I'd already been at school. When I came out, I was just I was paying my way and what I could afford. So I was working part-time at the school and then also turning around and just paying for.
Where'd you work?
I worked at the registrar's office.
Okay. I
Yeah.
worked at BYU as well. I worked at the Cannon Center
Oh,
dining.
yeah.
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 I learned how to make Jello.
So much Jello.
I was in the salad / catering. I still can make a really mean fruit dip that I learned.
That's nice.
Yeah.
As long as you don't make the mint chocolate brownies, we're good.
No, I never learned how to do those.
Yeah, no, that's like their signature thing, and I'm just like, they're just not good.
Oh no.
I don't like them. But yeah, so I ended up doing family studies because I thought, oh, I'll go into. I was like, oh, this degree will get me to a master's degree in like marriage and family therapy, and then I can support myself. It's not very lucrative. And I'm not really even using my degree for that. It's helped with like my family and things like that. It's been very helpful, but my goal was to become a therapist, and I never went to get a master's
Mhm.
because I was like, research is not my thing. It's not. And so,
Yeah,
you know,
I
but
think I like nobody loved college more than me. I absolutely
really,
loved the experience. I had an
oh,
incredible time. It was probably if I had to go back to like one part of my life to relive, it would probably be college. It
oh,
was
oh.
the best. But on the same breath, I can confidently say that it was a complete waste of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
time, maybe a little bit of money on my part anyway.
I mean,
Like,
I'm grateful I had support, I had to trust that I was able to, so I was working more just for extra, and
that's
to
awesome.
be able to have some fun and stuff. But I mean, I just have, I mean, aside from like basics like reading and writing, editing, those kinds of like core skills,
Mhm.
those have been helpful. But I mean, I had a political science degree, and I guess it taught me to argue effectively. But
Oh,
almost everything that I've learned as far as my career, I've just learned through trial and error and through people training me, and and things like that. Like I mean, if people are kind of questioning, should I go to college or should I not go to college? And like, well, how much debt are you going to be at the end? And if you're going to be in a lot, no, don't
and
go.
right. And do you need to go to college? Like, do you need to go to a university to learn what you want to learn?
Yeah.
Like engineering and things. There are some that like those classes. I would prefer my engineers to have an
Yeah,
education.
that's
You know what I mean?
right.
To know
Right.
their math. I would prefer buildings to be structurally sound mathematically. But there's some things like I do kind of wish
Liberal arts in the
yeah,
liberal arts.
yeah. And I do wish that like there were more conservatories because I think that was my thing. I had to do with going into the BFA program. If I was going, like, I had looked into it and thought about it, there were all of these classes that I had to take that I was like, oh.
Well, that's what they do. I've
Why?
talked to a ton of actors up in Canada, for Hallmark stuff, and they have like just acting programs, acting schools, and you just go for like 2 years and that's it. You're just doing acting. And I'm like, that's the way, that's smart.
Yeah. And
That's
they do,
smart.
there are a couple. There's AMDA here, and it's just insanely expensive.
Yeah.
And it's also competitive because there
Yeah.
are only a handful. And
Right.
so it would be cool. I mean, I don't even know how you'd get that ball rolling or how you'd even start that. And of course, you'd probably be broke for many, many years if you were to start that school, because the theater arts just don't,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're, Hollywood, or unless you have a massive donor, which is difficult. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
you're not gonna have a ton of money to start that school.
So you went to school and then you've done some shows. So how did you start getting involved, particularly with OPA? How did you decide to kind of dip your toe back into performing?
It was kind of an accident. Not like so we moved from Provo up to Layton, and we were renting an apartment, and I had two little boys at the time, and there was a girl in my church, and she came over and was just kind of like, hey, you're new, let's get to know you. And I
Yeah.
mentioned that I had, like, offhandedly mentioned that I took a semester of stage management. And she was like, you're a stage manager? Like, no. It's been a minute since I've had
Yeah.
schooling, because we moved up here, it was like January 2018. I can't remember exactly when, but I think it was January, and this was in February or March. And I graduated college in 2015.
Mhm.
So, like, significant amount of time for just to have one semester that wasn't even at the very tail end of my schooling. And she was like, we need help. And I was like, well, hold on. Wait a second. So she was actually doing a show called Epic, which is like a choose your own adventure play, which was so fun and such a cool concept, terrifying concept until you see it. And then you're like, oh, okay. Okay. Because all of the choices are written out. So you basically just memorize one big script with, the
Yeah.
different options. But it was called Epic, and it was being produced by Next Stage Productions. They don't unfortunately exist anymore. They closed. They didn't have their own space. They didn't have their own theater.
Mm.
So they were renting OPA's space. And so
Mm.
all of the rehearsals were there and performances were there. And so I was stage managing, but then the actress who was playing IU, is one of the characters, she had to drop out for some reason. And instead of trying to find a new actor, they were like, well, Caitlin, you've been stage managing and having to read her part, because I was having to step in for quite a few rehearsals before that. So they're like, why don't you just do it? And I was like, out of the frying pan. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, here we go. And it was just that reignition. I don't know if that's reigniting of I love performing. I
Mhm.
do. I really do. And so and having been at OPA, I was able to meet like the staff, because I was having to
Mhm.
work with them as the stage
Mhm.
manager. I was, having to ask, could we do this? And is this okay? And so I got to know them a little bit more. And then I started volunteering there. I was feeling comfortable in their space. I was feeling seen, and it was small and intimate. So I didn't feel like I was just getting lost in the crowd, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. And so,
Mhm.
and there were a lot of opportunities to volunteer. There were a lot of options, and places. And then, um, and then it came down to me being like, okay, there's this show coming up. It was the musical comedy Murders of 1940. And never, I've never auditioned in Utah at this point. And I say in Utah because I hadn't, first of all. But in high school, it was like the drama teacher and the choir teacher were like, they'd be like, okay, next, okay, so we know who you are, because they did, and they'd be like, okay, sing this, and then sing. So there wasn't this, like, you didn't have to prepare anything, you didn't have
Mhm.
to slate. Like,
Yeah.
I heard someone say slate, and I was like, what in the blue blazes is that? I don't know what that is. Like, how, what does that mean? And so the staff at OPA, they were like, oh, so I think it was Brandon at one point, he pulled me into his office and he was like, okay, slate. And I was like, what?
I
And
wouldn't have known.
Right. And
That is, yeah.
right. So he was like, well, this is what slating is. And so when you come into an audition, you'll like kind of, sometimes they'll have an X on the floor, sometimes they won't. So you just find a good distance from the table of people. And you state your name and what you'll be reading and or performing. And so he like kind of really held my hand and taught me how to audition correctly, right? Because I had no idea how. And I still don't think I do it right, but it's fine. It's worked. Whatever I'm doing has worked. So they were just it became very much like a family environment for me and a safe environment for me. And the amount of classes and opportunities. And honestly, it was like, I was like, I don't know how to do this. And they'd be like, okay, let's teach you. They were so eager to teach. And so I kind of just I felt safe there and I felt comfortable
Mhm.
there and start kind of
I
got my
love
courage
that
up.
about OPA. They have such an educational
Yeah.
foundation to everything they do.
Mhm.
And I wish I lived closer because I think I would love to be involved even more.
Mhm.
But I love any chance I get to see anything there. It's I mean, you know, sometimes I think I actually prefer the really kind of raw, imperfect local performance over the glossy, you know, performances at, you know, your equity places and stuff. Like they all have their appeal, of course, but I don't know, there's just something like exciting about seeing people, you know, they're trying their hardest, they're doing their best, and there's like an energy to that and like a community spirit to be a part of that
Yeah.
I really enjoy.
Yeah. And a lot of the little, the smaller theaters around here, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the passion of the actors, whether or not they're, these great talents that are perfect. And I know what you're saying. I agree with that. Every now and then it's so nice to go down to like Hale or Eccles and see these beautifully, not just acted and sung, but produced.
Yeah. Yeah.
See that, but also realizing that that's a beautiful exception to
Yeah.
theater and having the opportunity. And I keep thinking about how I'm able to like I'm a mom and I'm a wife and I'm all of these other things, but then I can just go and be me
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
take a second to become somebody else for a
Yeah.
minute.
Well,
And
and I think it's good for kids too to be like, we're just going to support our mom in doing this and seeing
right?
you fulfill a goal and
Yeah.
go to practices and all of that, rehearsals. I think that's good for kids to see and be a part of.
Yeah, and to understand that there's more to life than them.
Yeah,
The world doesn't revolve
exactly.
around them, but then also involving my kids. They're not
Hmm.
quite old enough for the junior classes. My oldest will be old enough if he wanted to, but he's just so not. He's like, I'll sit and watch. He'd probably make a really good backstage crew member because he's
Uh-huh.
super detail oriented, but he doesn't like
Yeah.
to be in front of anybody. Um, but I actually that was another way I started getting involved at OPA. I started teaching the junior classes. So like
Oh,
I
fun.
directed and did some of that with the kids, and seeing how confident and more articulate these kids became in just a span of a semester. Like you teach these kids how to project and how to enunciate and how to turn out, chi out to your audience
Hmm.
and all of those things. And then you see them and they're not just doing it on stage. You see this super timid kid come in at the beginning of class because mom said that this is my after school. This is what I'm doing after school. And
Hmm.
that's the after school program mom signed me up for. And I'm really shy and I'm really nervous. And then that kid by the end, they have friends and they're confident in the way
Hmm.
that they carry themselves,
Yeah.
the way that they can communicate. And it may not be super articulate. It's not going to be like an adult, but they're able to just stand with confidence and look you in
Hmm.
the eye and have a conversation. And it's just amazing to see that in a kid and to know, okay, yeah, maybe theater, acting isn't what everyone's going to go off and do, right? But that kid is going to have to talk to an adult at work when they're an adult.
Hmm.
They're going to have to interview for jobs. They need to know how to be confident and how to carry themselves. And that's what theater can do for anybody at any
Yeah.
stage. And that's just like the technical part of it. The emotional part of it is a whole different ball game.
Hmm.
And I just think I love
Yeah.
it. It's beautiful.
So the first time I saw you was in Legally Blonde at OPA.
Yeah.
That was a pretty early, let's see, that was in February, I think, of 2021. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I just, you got my first Best Actress award in my best of that I do every half a year. You got my first one, and I just loved your performance. I loved how you captured Elle in a new way. I'd never seen an actress like yourself in that role, and I just loved your performance so much. It was very inspiring to me.
Thank you. That means a lot. It was so that whole experience, so that was my first musical in since 2008. So in my high school, my senior year of high school, we did Man of La Mancha, and I was Aldonza, Dulcinea, whoever you want to call her.
Mhm.
And so that was the first musical I had done since then.
Wow.
And I mean,
Well,
I'd
how did you have the confidence to even try out?
I did. Oh, it was all fake. It was all, I was like, well, I act on stage. I might as well act in my audition. Like I had been taking voice lessons. I had been with Questley and a couple of other people. And I was like, you know what? What's the point of doing this? Yes, keeping my voice, warm and, up to speed is great, but I want to do something with it. And I had done musical comedy Murders, which is not ironically a musical, and Much Ado About Nothing. So I'd gotten a Shakespeare in, and I'd gotten a straight play in, and I was like, okay, now's the time. And Legally Blonde is one of those musicals where the ensemble is so fun. It is like you're in everything, you sing some awesome songs. And so I was like, look, even if I'm in the ensemble, I will have a fun time with this show. Rachel Hellwig was directing, and I had worked with her a little bit. Like I'd helped out, I'd volunteered at Layton High School for a fundraising event that they had for their theater department. So I'd known her, like I'd met her a couple times, and I was like, okay, she's a nice person. And she's the theater director at Layton High, so she's probably seen better talent, but whatever. Let's just throw my hat in the ring. Let's just do it. So I signed up and actually didn't even add Elle to my list of roles that I would take until the day before. So I was like, might as well just do it. Like,
Yeah,
let's just go
yeah.
for it. So when the cast list came out, they didn't even hold callbacks. And so it was auditions. And then I think it was like a day or two later that the cast list was posted. And I immediately scrolled to the bottom because I was like, my name's on this list. It's going to be down here. So I
Yeah.
scroll to the bottom and I'm reading the names. And I'm like, oh, I didn't get it. Like, okay, that's okay. It's okay. It would have been my first, like, I really was just like, okay, we'll try again. It'll be okay. So then I was like, well, because I had friends right in it auditioning and stuff. And so I was like, well, who got it? And so I scroll up to the top and there was my name
Oh
next
my
to Elle Woods. And
gosh.
I just started sobbing because I'm a curvy woman.
Yeah.
Elle Woods, I mean, there's references to her being slender and her being thin and that Hollywood typical look of blonde, and I'm not.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's easily fixed with a wig. I ended up dyeing my hair because I was like, wigs are hot. So if you're okay with me dyeing my hair, let's just do it. um, so yeah, and that was such a huge, anytime I get cast, and I don't know if how other actors process, but I just have this moment of like, okay, now I get to tell somebody else's story, and
Yeah.
fictional though they may be, that person has a story to tell and they are worth having their story told.
Yeah.
And so now I get to take on this character who I never in a million years thought that someone would look at me or hear me sing and think she could be Elle Woods.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm not slender. So there's that
Right.
already working against me. But I really was grateful to the production team on that show for giving me that chance. And so in that moment, I was like, I'm not going to waste it. And I'm going to do my absolute best. And so I
Yeah.
ended up like doubling up on voice lessons. And I was working so hard to give her depth. And I think that's my goal with any character I play, is to give them depth. Um, Even with Fairy Godmother, she had a 9-page backstory that I wrote for her. Like,
I love that.
I'm a little bit much, but it gives me something to work with. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
It
So,
was awesome.
well, thank
It
you.
was really great. I think it was my second show that I'd seen at OPA. The first thing I saw there was actually Rent,
Right.
and I was excited because it doesn't play that often here,
Mm.
and so I went up there and I saw. So it must have been actually 2022 that, because I saw Rent
Right.
in the
Yeah.
fall, and then then
Yeah.
then I saw
Yeah.
yeah. So it
Because-
was February 2022, and it was just really great. It's the kind of show that you're like, I wish it was, because in Broadway, these shows last for years and years and years, and there's
Mhm.
sometimes with these shows, I'm like, I just wish, I almost wish it was just like a permanent.
Do it again.
So
Yeah.
it's so good, and so many people, yeah,
And
should go
the
see it.
whole cast, I remember just thinking that whole cast, we had so much fun together.
Mm-hmm. You
Everyone
could
was
tell.
so supportive of one another, and like just like the banter and the back and forth, and just everyone was just excited and happy to be there, and we were just like, let's just have fun. And
Yeah.
oh, it was so great.
Did you
I
get
like,
to did you get
sorry,
to
go ahead.
meet Laura Bell Bundy?
I did. I did get to meet her. So she
Unbelievable.
came, so on Pitch Performing Arts, they do like every year they bring a Broadway professional out. And because of COVID for a couple years we had to stop. And then because of COVID, we also changed it because the grants and things, it's an educational thing. I'm not sure what they'll reintroduce, but the kids anyway can take classes from these Broadway stars. In fact, just recently, during Cinderella, Carrie Butler and Laura Bell Bundy came and they did a class together. So you could sign up and do this like master class with them. Was it? Maybe it was just Laura Bell Bundy who did it, but I had
I
rehearsals.
went to her concert that
Oh,
they did. It was
so
unbelievable. Of
good,
course.
so
Yeah.
good. But they came and I got to briefly meet her. I'm really weird around celebrities. I wanna say I'm the kind of person who's like calm as a cucumber and can have just a normal conversation. No, I'm like, if I open my mouth, this person's gonna think I'm psycho. So I was just like, hi, it's lovely to meet you. I'm gonna go now. But she was so sweet, and
Yeah.
she continues to come back because she really likes she likes Utah. She's felt
Yeah.
welcomed, and I
That's
put
great.
words in her mouth, but from what I understand,
Yeah.
just feels like it's great. So
That's
um
good.
yeah, and
That's very cool.
it was fun. I also got to meet Carrie Butler. It was a very brief, like, hi, it's so lovely to meet you. I love your body of work. Stop talking, please leave. Like,
So
so
now you did Cinderella,
I did Cinderella.
which
Mhm.
was super fun. And
Yeah.
then now you're doing Jekyll and Hyde,
Yes.
which I actually saw for the first time last month at Draper Historic.
Mhm.
And it was so good, a
Mhm.
million times better than I ever would have expected. And I thought the Hyde / Jekyll was outstanding in that
Mhm.
production. Really
Yeah.
good.
So a fun fact, my cast, the girl who plays Lucy, her uncle was in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he was I think he was Bishop of Basingstoke.
Oh,
And so
villain.
yeah. So it was always so fun to play a villain. It's so fun to just be like
Yeah.
the nasty, like, oh.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's fun because we have ties to them, and we were trying to get a group to go down and see them, and with rehearsals and everything. It's, I can't, I have
Uh-huh.
rehearsal. That's common phrase. But they were talking about a group of them coming up and supporting us, and I just think that's so cool that the community theater world is like that. Like,
Yeah.
hey, they're doing this, and in fact, when we were doing Cinderella, Heritage was finishing their Cinderella. We were in rehearsals
Mm.
while they were finishing, and a few of us tried to get together to go up and see it, and vice versa. And it's just really cool that there's enough connection between them that it's like, let's go support instead of
Yeah.
feel like we did better, or because that's just silly to me. I'm like, we're in Davis County, Utah. It doesn't matter. Like, we're just doing it because we love it, right? Like, that's why
Yeah.
I get up there. I do it because it makes me feel good, but also the idea of being able to leave someone feeling something that maybe they hadn't felt before,
Mhm.
and lets them sit with their emotions for a minute, or
Yeah.
the campy, lighthearted feeling of just, oh, that was great. I just felt great for these last 2 hours. that is something that is so important for me to give to somebody,
Mhm.
that's why I care so
I
much.
especially appreciate it when these companies take a risk and do a show that's maybe a little bit challenging for, here in Utah. That when, come out and support, like Ziegfeld just doing Kinky Boots this last weekend.
Yeah.
I was really happy to go and see that it was full, like they're sold out. That made me really happy because uh, you know, I think that we don't only want we don't only want Disney shows, like those are good, but we want a variety of
Mhm.
productions here. And it's good for theaters to stretch themselves. And so I really love seeing that support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It really is great. It really, oh, I'm gonna be corny for a minute, but it really puts the unity in community.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
It is really great. And it's awesome to see that people, like audiences, are willing to step out of their comfort zone a little bit. I mean, who I grew up on the Rodgers and Hammerstein. Oklahoma is like a dream show for me. I would love to be Laurie. Like, ugh,
Oh, I would love to see that.
but nobody, I mean, but again, it's we want to break out of the rut and do stuff. And honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why I know, like, on Pitch Performing Arts, when they added their creator stage, the creator stage is meant for the somewhat edgier shows like the Laramie Project, uh,
Hmm.
and the Shakespeare Abridged, and things like that that are a little bit more edgy, that we may not get a full, because
Yeah.
again, it's new, it's
Yeah.
unfamiliar, it's not Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Right.
you know so it's
I
really
just
cool.
saw Shakespeare Abridged at Pleasant Grove Players, and that was one of the like true gems that I discovered from all of this is the Pleasant Grove Players in the Pleasant Grove Library. You would never believe this
No.
tiny little theater in the Pleasant Grove Library put on as amazing shows as they do.
Yep.
Everything I've seen there has been absolutely incredible,
Great.
and the team. I want to have them on the podcast. The Littles, that do all of those shows are just
Uh-huh.
absolutely incredible, and the that's the thing is that most places you wouldn't have the ability to see 200 shows in 2 years like I've had here in Utah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I feel like I'm still learning about new theaters.
And they pop up
Still,
all the time.
yeah.
And it's just, I love it. I
Yeah.
love when that happens, because it's like there's clearly a need, and there's clearly people who are like, oh, you know what? I haven't seen this show done. How do we get this show
Mhm.
done? I will start my own company. Like,
Yeah.
or I'll, join the board. That's another thing that people can do. If you want to start having a say, or I wouldn't say control, because that's
Mhm.
more of like the executive director of the theater, but oftentimes if you join the board of a theater, or start volunteering on a committee of some kind,
Yeah.
you do get to have more say, and you do get to be like, as someone who was an audience member and now I'm more involved, this is kind of what I observed. And it's so amazing, the productions. I just it is
Mhm.
intimidating, because Utah is so full of talented people. Like, I branched out and auditioned for a show at Centerpoint right before COVID hit, and I got cast, and I was like, this is awesome. It was in Midsummer Night's Dream, but then they got all got shut down. But it's just the amount of talent that is just very present.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
It is unbelievable, and it's really refreshing to see. Honestly, I know this is gonna sound weird. It's actually really refreshing to see someone in a lead or in a supporting role, or even just in the ensemble, who can't hit the note,
Mhm.
because what it tells me is that that theater is willing
Yeah.
to with anyone,
I
and to
agree.
help them become more talented, and
Mhm.
and to do what they love. And I love it. I
Yeah.
love that opportunity.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Merch Store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies Merch Store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
So I assume you are a fan of musical theater.
Yeah.
And so where do you have like that first show that you really fell in love with
Yes.
as far as Broadway shows?
Yes, I do. It's The Secret Garden.
Yeah.
And I love the book. I love like the book The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different copies of it.
Nice.
Because it's just so beautiful. And the way that the musical was written brings that magic and that simplicity to life. I would love, I know, so Kaysville City is doing it this year in the summer. And of course, it was like Jekyll and Hyde and The Secret Garden. And it was like, I got to choose one. And I chose Jekyll and Hyde because it is done. But anyway, there were a whole lot of factors that went into that choice. But I keep going, oh, someday I will be in The Secret Garden, but nobody does it. Very few people do.
I would love to see that. We need to make that happen.
So it's such a beautifully written, the orchestration of it, the writing of it itself, the book itself in the musical. But I also, and maybe it's because I liked the book, but I saw it here when we lived here, when my dad was stationed here. I got to go see it. I don't know at the time what the theater was because it wasn't Eccles. Eccles is too new. But I saw it there, and I remember thinking, that's what I want to do.
Well, you'll be excited because they're doing a revival on Broadway, Secret Garden.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it yeah. Let's see here. Sierra Burgess and Derek Davis. Let's see. Let's see this article that it opens in they did the tryout in Los Angeles in February and bringing the production to New York later this year. So
I guess I'm going to New York.
Let me know. I'll go with. That would be actually so fun.
It's so, and I love it because there's nothing about it that has to be changed. It's timeless. And I know a lot of people really enjoy it. I'm curious to see how Kaysville City usually sells really well. And I live in Kaysville, so that's why I'm tuned into that. But I
have to check that out. When it's coming now?
It's usually like the first weekend of July. It's their like citywide show. Let me see if I can find the dates. But it is, from the cast list that I've seen and the direction, the people involved on the production team, it's just going to be stunning. It's going to be beautiful. So Kaysville City's musical. I'll text you those dates when I find it.
I want to go. That's for sure. I love that show. I actually think I told my sister that she should audition for that show. My sister has a beautiful classic voice. Like it's not really belty, but it's she was a Marian in Music Man. That's like the perfect spot for her.
Yeah.
And I think she would be really good in Secret Garden.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. And I know that there's 2 versions of it, and I don't like the newer version. It changes things too much. So there's like the spring version and then the original version, and the original version is where it's at. It is golden, beautiful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, they did it at Hale, I think last year or the year before. I didn't love it. Their take, I didn't love the styling, the way they decided to produce it. A lot of times Hale, I'm a little and I'm pickier with Hale because it's $70 ticket. I'm gonna hold them to a higher standard than I am, $12 at Opa or whatever.
Right.
But I'm not the biggest Hello Dolly fan. I think it's fine, but I don't love the story. But this last production there, It was
just saw
unbelievable. They
pictures
had
of
a whole train, like a
I
life-size train.
saw that. I was like, okay, they've pulled out all the
It
stops
was
for this show. I haven't had a chance to go see it because that's what happens when you know,
Yeah.
rehearsals all the time. You don't get to go see other stuff very much. But something I did get to go see The Lion in Winter at
Oh, was it good at
Oh,
Center Point?
Rachel, you have to go see it.
Uh-huh.
It's so good. I know, added to the many millions of things you have to do, but it is so good. And it's mostly men, but it's very like, I thought it was gonna be written like a Shakespeare, and it wasn't. The way that it's written, it's comedy and drama. And so it takes quite a bit of talent to do that well. And the actors blew me away. They blew me away. Leslie Barrett in particular was stunning. Like, I want to be her when I grow up. I want to be able to do the nuancing on my face like that. Oh my goodness. I was intrigued the entire way through. I had no clue what the
And
show
that's in the
was
black
about.
box there at Center Point.
Yeah.
Because I have to say, I think the Fantastics, not my favorite. I didn't love that show. And I saw that they did a good job with, but I've seen it twice. I saw it at Pleasant Grove Players and I saw it at Center Point Black Box. And I'm like, I just don't love the story.
I've seen, so I got to see it up in Sundance when, they do their outdoor.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this was a while ago, and it was like the third time I'd seen it. And I thought, maybe this time I'll like it. I'm a little bit older. I'll maybe get it down a little better.
No,
it's just the story. It could be beautifully done and perfectly produced, but it's just
I agree. Like, Try to Remember, it's an all-time banger.
Right.
It's one of the greats.
Right.
But everything else, I was like, I agree with you. Well, so speaking of that, what do you have what you think is a really popular musical theater show that you think is a little overrated and one that you think is underrated? Maybe Secret Garden you think is underrated.
Yes, The Secret Garden is absolutely underrated. Everyone needs to see it. Everyone needs to love it as much as I do. I really do. I do think that the orchestration, like in Lily's Hazel Eyes, just chills every time. It doesn't matter. Like, you could be singing it flat and the orchestration would still get me. Like, it's so beautiful. So Secret Garden is underrated. And don't hate me for this, but I actually think Wicked is overrated. How dare you? No, I know. I kind of went back and forth between Wicked and Hamilton. Because I don't know why. I really don't know why. And I don't know if because Wicked became really popular when I was in high school. And so everyone wanted to sing Elphaba stuff and everyone was auditioning with Defying Gravity and it was just non-stop. And it's just kind of like, I understand that when it's produced, it's eye candy.
Yeah.
Like, you go and see it and it's just like, you can't stop looking at all of the things. It's so stunning. But I'm like, yeah, the music is good. It's not that it's bad. I get it too much.
Yeah, it's a lot, and we've gotten a lot of it. I mean, I do love it, but yeah, no, I can understand the exposure has been huge.
Yeah. I think that there are also other good musicals that, again, are underrated. They don't get the attention that they should. And
I mean, for me, this, and I've said it many times, but Into the Woods, I think, is overrated. I just don't love it. I don't like, especially the second act. It was so funny because they did it at Kensington and absolutely blew my mind, even though I don't love the show. And they're an incredible underrated theater. And they the lady, she got up, the director, she had an Into the Woods dress. It had like the playbill for Into the Woods on her dress. So she was like hardcore and she's like, please don't leave at the end of the first act. I'm like, okay. And I understand it's supposed to be a subversive and how dreams, they don't always turn out the way that you think, and that's okay. And I get it. To me, I walk away from that and being like, yeah, we all know that. Like,
right.
I know my response is big whoop. Like, who cares? Like,
which is really sad because I love Into the Woods.
We all know the dreams don't turn out. You don't need to craft your musical around that. Like, that's not something new. I don't know. I'm always just like, can I just leave it with her at the palace? And I understand that those who love it are like, you're missing the whole point. I'm like, no, I don't like your point.
And that's fair. That really is fair. It's an acquired taste. And I think for me, I look at it as like we often, yes, our dreams don't turn out the way that we think, but it's like, what's best for us?
Mm-hmm.
And some, like, I don't know, I
Yeah,
think the
I
closing
also
number is really
feel-
what puts that beautiful bow on it.
Yeah, I also feel like with Sondheim, his shows are better as a whole, as opposed to, like, I prefer, just my personal preference, I prefer more sort of cabaret friendly shows that like have like real belting standout songs that you can like sing in a cabaret performance,
Yeah,
right?
that makes
And that's
sense.
just not who Sondheim was for the most part. There's usually one or two songs like Agony in Into the Woods or No One Is
Yeah.
Alone. There's like a few, but for the most part, they all kind of blend together and there isn't like this sort of standout musical song. And I can appreciate that. But I just don't love it.
So really what you're saying is you just don't like Sondheim, which is fine.
I like I like Company way better than Into the Woods because Company has those individual standout moments for its ensemble.
Yeah.
And I just think I just like it so much, but just more my taste. I like the songs so much better. I like the story so much better. I like everything about it.
That's what's beautiful about theater is that like there has to be people who like those shows and don't like those, like, you know, that's why
there's and I can appreciate In the Woods. That's why I still go to see it if a company I love is doing it, like Oprah's doing it. I'm like, oh,
I know.
They're voting for it. I'm like, what?
Well, I ended up, you missed that. That was quite so it was a tie. And
it was a tie.
The executive director was like, if someone wants to pay us $500 and donate $500, we will do Into the Woods. And somebody, because like they did, and it was because
can I donate $500 to not?
You can donate $500, I'm sure, anytime you want. But they're doing Chorus Line and they're doing because anyway,
that's exciting. I absolutely love Chorus Line. I never seen it until I saw it at the Empress and it blew me away. I thought they did such a great job, and they actually did Company as well, and so good. But yeah, I just don't love Into the Woods. I wish I did. I don't love it. I've tried so many times. I also, some other ones that I don't love. I'm actually seeing it tonight. I don't love Footloose, but it's not great. I didn't love The Band's Visit. I thought that was not great. I didn't think it had a single, like, I think Omar Sharif is the memorable song. The rest are completely forgettable. And I'm like, that beat Frozen and Mean Girls? Like, what? At the Tonys? That makes no sense to me.
It's artistry, I think, is because, you know, I don't know, but Mean Girls is also really fun. I think Mean Girls would be a fun one to do.
Oh my God, you would be so good in Mean Girls.
It would just be fun.
I would love to see that. What else you would be? They should do Guys and Dolls.
Oh my God.
Opa, you would be such a good Adelaide. You'd be hilarious at that.
Oh, that would be so fun. Another one that the stage version I think is better than the movie version. But it still I think needs to be shortened a little bit, but Singing in the Rain. And I would love to be Lena.
I mean, that's one
so fun.
At Hale. Did you see it at Hale?
No, I wanted to. In fact, a friend of mine I went to college with was what's his name?
Dawn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was the best thing they've ever done. I feel confident in saying that. It was absolutely, I saw it 3 times.
Oh wow.
I loved it so much.
Oh, that's good. That's dedication. That means it was good.
It was.
I don't know if I could see anything 3 times.
It was absolutely outstanding. I mean, everything, the production, the singing, the dancing, that's awesome. Unbelievable. Yeah, it was.
And that's a lot of
so good.
Yeah.
I love that show. I do agree. It could be trimmed a little bit, but I feel that way so often. I just saw In the Heights at the Grand, and that was amazing. But I also agree that show could be trimmed a little bit.
It's also, and I hate saying this because I think he's becoming the next Andrew Lloyd Webber. Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's not like he's bad, but like I'm like, Lin-Manuel wrote this, didn't he? Like, you can hear it, and that's not a bad thing. But like, there were so many times throughout Hamilton that I was like, am I listening to In the Heights? And then again with Encanto, and then again with, so it's let me be very clear.
Yeah, I think that he might have finally reached max capacity with this Scuttlebutt in The Little Mermaid. That is his worst song he's ever written, and I think that's finally the tipping point with almost everybody, even someone I love. I think he finally lost me on that one.
He's entertaining, like, and again, I could not do what he's done. I couldn't sit down and be like, read a book and be like, this guy needs a musical about him, let me write one. Like, I could not do that. So all of this is kind of like, let me eat my words, but at the same time, there's a point where I'm like, and this is the other thing, Andrew Lloyd Webber has gotten this, like, he's on this pedestal, and then he writes something like Bad Cinderella. And I'm like, it's literally called Bad Cinderella, guys. He's self-aware. Like, let's just let Phantom of the Opera be and let him have cats. I think that's a good one too. Like,
I've never seen Cats, but I do kind of want to see it just to check it off my, like, musical bucket list. Like, I want to see it once just to see it.
Yeah.
Because my obsession was Les Mis, was my obsession. I mean, the 10th anniversary concert had just come out when I was in high school. And I literally knew every line to every song. If they need a swinger understudy at any moment, I could have been called it.
Call me, I'll be there.
And I still love the show. I'm actually seeing it next. It's coming to the Eccles, so I'm excited. I'm gonna see it. I love Les Mis, and I thought it was such kismet that, so I got my vaccination in April 2021, and the first show that I see, because I was literally traumatized by the fact that, like, Broadway and all the theaters were closed. That, like, was very upsetting for me, very difficult. I just made a commitment. I was like, I'm going to support musical theater and local theater as much as I possibly can. It is not going away on my watch. And so I got vaccinated, and then I waited the 2 weeks, which was the recommendation at the time. And the first show that I see is Les Mis at Hale Center Theater, and it was a really wonderful production. I had little gripes with it, but for the most part, it was really great. And that's, I just thought that was such kismet that, like, the first show would be the show that, like, that I love so much, and that inspired me so much as a teenager. And when I was a teenager, I went up to New York with my choir, and we got the choice of either seeing Cats or Les Mis. So I definitely chose Les Mis.
Oh, good. So I also went to New York. I think it was my junior year, maybe my senior year. I can't remember. And before we left, it was a choice, and it was Beauty and the Beast or something else that I mean, I don't even remember, but I remember, oh my gosh, Beauty and the Beast. And it was Annalise Vanderpool, who was in That's So Raven, which was like a big thing when I was growing up. And so it was like cool to see her as Belle, but then, like, just the production of it all was so cool. That was the first on actual Broadway in New York that I got to see. And I haven't been able to go see anything since. So there's goals there, but it's just, Les Mis is a good one. And that's the other thing. Like, I just feel like there's so many musicals that are good and they have good messages and they are fun. And then you have these smaller ones that, like, aren't really done a lot, but they're also really good. And so it's like that idea of, like, just supporting, just going and seeing something new and getting outside of your comfort zone, and not going because it's not a Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Yes. One of the ones that probably one of the biggest surprises for me was Shrek the Musical, because I'm not that big, I'm an animation lover.
Yeah.
I'm not like that high in the Shrek movies. To me, they're a fun laugh, but like very
Yeah.
forgettable. And I hate the third one. It was absolutely atrocious. But but I wasn't expecting much from Shrek the Musical, and I went and saw it at Murray Amphitheater, and I felt so bad for them because it was like 100 degrees.
Hot.
It was so hot, and I just felt so bad. But they
Yeah.
did an absolutely amazing job. I thought the show was so funny.
Yeah.
And like with good songs. I mean, Lord Farquaad is hilarious in that show.
It's a good show.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And so that was a really big surprise.
And
So,
those are some, like, they'll become your, but that's the thing. I keep thinking, like, how do you get a favorite musical if you're not branching out and
yeah, it's true.
trying new stuff? And you don't have to like everything you try. That's totally fine. You know, some people don't like Into the Woods, and I think they're wrong. I'm teasing. But like, how can you know if you don't go?
True.
How can and I think musical theater it's one of those things where you need to go and see it. You need to go experience it before you really write it off, which is, I mean, hypocritical of me saying, because how many musicals have I just listened to the soundtrack of, and been like, oh, I want to do this, or oh, I'd love to see that, or oh, I wouldn't want to see that because based on the soundtrack. But the soundtrack is in a studio. It's perfect.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get the characters, and you don't get the acting, and you don't get the story really with it. And so musical theater is meant to be experienced and not just, you know, listened to. But you have to start somewhere. So
yeah. And it's just so important to support our community and to be part of something bigger than yourself is really just, I think, very important. So, well, very good. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us. This was a blast.
It was so fun.
It was really fun. And so your new show coming out is how can people get tickets, all that fun stuff?
So you can go to onpitchperformingarts.com and click on tickets, and then, you know, scroll down and click on tickets again. And you can buy them there through that website. We open this Friday, which is the 23rd. So if you see it on Friday, you'll see the Friday cast. Saturday is the Saturday cast opening night. So both casts are phenomenal. And the production team has done just a truly wonderful job at creating something that's a little bit different than, if you've seen Jekyll and Hyde a lot, this will be different. You've seen it, this will be different. And not so much that it's not the same story. It's just the way that the director's vision went and his idea about characters. It's just really cool. I'm very, very proud to be a part of this production, and really, really excited to share my version of Emma with everyone. So come see the show, because it's going to be really, really good. And we run until July 15th. And
it's the show that has one of the best female duets within his eyes. That must have been fun to do with the Lucy.
It's so good. And then I just get chills. Like, I just getting to sing counter with Lucy, my friend. Her name's Carrie Elle, and we get to sing together. It's the first show that we've done together. We've done one other show together, but we don't count it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. It's beautifully done. Everyone does a phenomenal job. It's really good.
That's great.
Come support local community theater.
Yes, you all should. And thanks again. And you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes, and Rachel's Reviews Theater.com. So check that out. And then also check out the Hallmarkies podcast for lots of fun stuff going on there. And I'll have all the links to all the information and the playlist for all Theater Tuesdays in the description. So check that out. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps a lot. And if you are watching YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. Also have the Patreon, which really helps me to be able to go to all these shows and see things. And please check out the Patreon and the merch store. And you can hashtag Animation Junkie shirts at the merch store. So check that out. And thanks so much, Cailin. This was a blast. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.